All right. Happy Friday, everybody. It is a beautiful Saturday or sunny Friday morning here in Seattle, Washington. And it's another day for the Real Estate Investing Club. Today we have Chris Seveney with us from the other coast, from Washington, D.C. And 7E Investments is his company. Chris has 25 years experience in construction and real estate development, and he has recently switched over to the note side. So Chris has huge breadth of experience. Super excited to jump into this with you, Chris. Thanks for hopping on the show.
Thanks, Gabe, for having me. Excited to be here. And similar to you, we've got the great weather now finally hitting us on the East Coast as well.
I know, man. I feel like we had a bit of a rough, everybody had a bit of a rough winter. And this sun now is just like, oof, hallelujah weather, man. Just going out there, enjoying it.
Yep, exactly.
All right. I told you before we got on here, we like stories. So why don't you take us back to the beginning of your real estate story? How'd you get into real estate?
Yeah. So my real estate story started actually after I graduated college. I had a degree civil engineering and started working for a commercial contractor up in Boston, where I spent 15 years working for them, doing condos, office, retail, medical, every aspect of construction. I was on the construction management side. So really got tons of experience and education on project management, how to manage vendors, contractors, and just every aspect of real estate. Unfortunately, being a project manager can burn you out pretty quickly. And once you, start, marriage, family, and so forth, and, 5-6 days a week, so 80 hours a week can wear on you. So I made a pivot, and what people on the general contracting side say, I went over to the dark side. So I went and started working for a real estate developer. Very, very different thought process from a contractor to developer. And the mindset is very, very different, very much more entrepreneurial on the development side, very more risk averse, and looking at much bigger picture than on the contracting side. You're focused on that one project. Development, you're focused on a much larger picture. And that entrepreneurial spirit and attitude really got my juices flowing, the point where last year I left my W-2 job after investing in mortgage notes for the last 6 years, which was kind of a side hustle. But during that side hustle, I was managing some funds. I decided to put a team together a year ago and leave my W-2. And now we're raising $150 million for a mortgage note fund.
Nice, man. I love it. I've never heard of a fund being, maybe this is just my lack of experience, but I've never heard of a fund for notes. You always hear of funds for, mobile home parks, multifamily, whatever asset class, but I've never heard it for funds. So that's really interesting.
There's not a lot, very few. It's very hands-on, a lot of management involved, but not a lot of people even understand about mortgage notes. And a lot of people know about private lending, but we invest in mortgage notes, which are off of secondary market. Most of them, they're distressed. So we're buying from other funds the distressed debt from them. So I didn't even know this existed. Mortgage notes existed until about when I got started in like 2015, 2016. I was actually kind of upset because I'd been in real estate for almost, 15 plus years. And I'm like, how did I not know about this? Yeah.
Yeah, we've recently had a few people on the show who invest in notes, and I personally didn't know it was a thing. It makes a lot of sense, once you hear about the strategy, you hear about the concept, it makes sense. But I had no idea it was a thing until last year probably. Sounds like a great strategy. Before we go into the note side, I just want to briefly touch on your time. 25 years in development and construction, you got a ton of experience there. I just want to touch on it really quickly. A lot of people out there, investors, when they buy properties, especially when it comes to like self-storage facilities, or anything you buy really on the commercial side, you buy a property if it has an ability, if the parcel is not fully utilized and there's options to expand, they're going to want to build on that. So what are, in your experience from working with developers and from working on the construction side, what are the main issues people run into when they are thinking about developing, thinking about building out on their lot, and probably on the pricing side is where the most issues arise. But what are the things that you see come up?
Yeah, great question. And been around and seen a lot. I've seen one company that was very successful that I knew of that what they were doing is they were buying up the property and then going and getting it entitled. And they were
Hmm.
doing that in 2006 and 7. And in 2008, essentially, they had to shut their doors. And then another developer, who the one I was working for, what they would do is they would get property under contract and they were residential based off of number of units they could potentially build. So then they would go and title it. So if they're buying it to put 100 units and they only could put 80, it'd be a price adjustment. But if they could do 120, it would be a price adjustment from that as well. So it was more, even keel where they put some money down. So understanding risk, which I talked about earlier. The other is just the entitlement phase and understanding what that means in the time it takes, because you have to go in front of potentially planning boards, zoning boards, city, county officials, whoever it may be. You really want to make sure when you're doing that, especially if you're not from that area, that you have engineers and a land use attorney that absolutely knows what they're doing and is well connected with who they're going in front of. Because not only will you have concerns from those representatives, but there's always a NIMBYism, not in my backyard. Anytime somebody wants to go develop something, especially if you're out of town, those citizens are going to be talking and squawking in the ears of those county reps, and they can make life very difficult, even when you think it should be a rubber stamped approval because it meets all the zoning requirements. So understand, always be conservative on the amount of time it takes, because if a official tells you, "Oh, we can get this done in 6 months," ask your land use attorney, how many have gotten done in 6 months, and they'll probably laugh and say 0.
That's funny. So, and again, I actually have never done a build out yet. We just bought
Yep.
a self storage
Hmm.
facility out in
Hmm.
Indiana that we will be building on.
Hmm.
But this is a place that I really do not have the experience, but I'm always
Yeah.
interested to learn. So, what is the duration that you generally see? I'm sure it varies
Yeah.
drastically from county to county, city to city, but what is just an average time it takes to entitle a property?
I mean, it can vary. If you can get something done in less than a year, you're doing really well. The other component I'll mention, when you mention costs are a huge risk factor. I think what a lot of people forget about is, okay, I'm going to put a self-storage property. So, self-storage on this property. If you're on a main road, how does that impact traffic? Did you include a traffic study? What if you have
Ah,
to put street lights in? What if you have to add a lane? If any of that needs to be done, that's your cost. That's your
mm,
betterment. So really, again, not just looking at that piece of parcel, pulling back and how is this impacting the locale as well. We see a lot of people make that mistake of wanting to, especially in more urban areas, rent, put a new type of property in, and all of a sudden you're putting, you want to put a Chick-fil-A in with a drive-through, and there's not, it only can hold 4 cars. If you're going back into that street, you might not get it, but if you do, they're going to make you do something significant. Is the utilities there? Is there big enough water line, sewer line, power? All of those things really got to be studied early on, to make sure all of a sudden you didn't just spend $500,000 to realize you don't have enough power, or you're going to have to spend $1 million to get power from a transformer a mile away. So again, a lot more impacts, and depending on what needs to be done, like we were talking about from a time, if it's just, okay, I'm just putting something on the site, doesn't have a big impact. Self-storage typically doesn't. Those, can go pretty quickly, but once you start, working, having to do traffic studies, just your team's time on getting things and working through, can take considerable time. But like I said, if you can get something done in a year, you should be doing backflips in most jurisdictions.
that's interesting. And I'm assuming when you're building, and you mentioned maybe you have to put a turn lane, if
Mhm.
there needs to be an expansion for a city road, is that on, will the developer be the one to foot the bill, or does the city go out there and do it, develop
Typically,
it?
they'll force a developer because it's your project that caused that impact.
Hmm.
Perfect example in the Washington D.C. area. There's one of the main counties in Maryland called Montgomery County. They now have instituted things where even if you want to redevelop a single family property, if it's over like 3,000 square feet or it's a new construction on a vacant lot, they have a school surcharge where it's like $40,000 that they'll charge you as a school impact fee just for
Wow.
that one, for that one property. And that's other things again is doing your due diligence, which I'll probably say 1,000 times. Understanding not only I'm going to put this, I want to build this. What are all those other ancillary costs and impacts? Because construction costs on new construction is much easier to estimate than a renovation. Because
Yeah.
renovation, you don't know. New construction, you get 3 quotes. They all should be within 5-10% of each other. You know where that's going to come in at. It's all those soft costs, what they say for the development and everything else that are the biggest unknowns typically.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. All right. Well, I mean, we could spend an entire podcast on this. I'm going to move us on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
Yeah.
70 investments,
Mhm.
note investing. This
Yeah.
is what you guys are doing right now. You're doing a fund,
Mhm.
all awesome stuff. What got you to note investing in the first place?
So what got me here technically was my wife because she told me no. And what I mean by that is we were buying some, properties here in the Washington, D.C. area, and we were rehabbing them to keep them as rentals. Probably like your market. You're in a metropolitan area, extremely competitive. We're both working W-2s. And, you get a lead on an asset, but if you don't go look at it that day, it's gone.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
we had done 2 deals, and we also had 2 young kids at the time. And this is between 2013 and 2015. And we had also just built our house. We acted as a general contractor on our house. And so we had considerable equity. So we basically had a line of credit and we'd use that to go buy cash, renovate it, and then refinance it. And, interest rates back in that time when you can get a loan for 3%, it's wonderful. Um, so
Gone
we
are
were
the
doing,
days.
yeah. So we were doing that. But my wife finally said, it's too much. We can't do this. So instead of allowing that, quote unquote, crush my dreams, I started looking at, okay, based off of our lifestyle, what can I do? And I started looking at tax lien investing, and to me, way too slow, way too boring. Sorry for anyone who's tax lien investors. I know you can make money on it, but it was for me, type A, going 100 miles an hour, not my gig. And then I stumbled upon note investing. And the more I started researching it, it takes, construction knowledge. It takes some understanding of finance and legal. And it's really a conflict oriented business a little bit because you're dealing with borrowers who aren't paying. So you can't be passive. And coming from my background in construction management, especially up in Northeast, working with unions, that's a tough environment to work with. And, it's a very conflict oriented business as well. So I kind of fit that mold. If you're a very quiet, passive investor, distressed mortgage notes probably is not going to be for you because you have to make some hard decisions sometimes. And like I said, I kind of fit that bill. And once I started educating myself and learning about it, I just got so excited and passionate about it and just started buying notes back in. I think I bought my first note in was it 2016 or 17? I can't remember now. I think it was 2017, but yeah.
Nice. So, take us a little bit further into your business model. I mean, I know you guys are
Mhm.
buying notes, but
Yep.
how do you guys find the notes?
Mhm.
Obviously, you're financing it with a fund. Is there a specific buying criteria that you use to kind of vet them, or kind of just go further into it?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question because there's many different buy boxes people can have. Some people who do private lending are note investors where they're lending business purpose loans. So our primary business is we buy first position
Hmm.
because you can be, multiple positions alone. So we want to be in a first position, primarily on residential properties, owner occupied. And what I'll use the term is middle income homes. And I say that because a middle income home in Ohio or Indiana is going to be very different than one in Seattle or Washington, D.C. A $600,000 house around Washington, D.C. area is a middle income home. $600,000 house in, certain parts of the Midwest is, a
A
12,000
mansion.
square foot mansion. So we like, that middle income home. And most of the loans we'll look at are originated, I'll say, before like 2017. We typically won't buy anything that was post COVID. And people always ask us why. And our comment is, we like our loans to have equity in them. So if a house was, if you bought a house in 2012 for $200,000, just say, and you put 10% down, your mortgage, even if you were distressed on that mortgage, your mortgage, let's say the balance never stayed at 180. Where do you think the value of that house is today? 10 years later, that house is probably 250, 300. And then we buy that loan at 60 cents on the dollar, or let's say 50 cents to keep the numbers nice and even. You're buying it for say 90, even 100,000. So you have $100,000 mortgage you just bought. They owe you 180, but the house is worth 250. So even a 20%, 50% crash in the real estate market, keeps that investment protected. So from a risk profile, we like to think it's less risk averse than other types of real estate offerings. In the same token, because it's less risk averse, you might see other syndications that offer greater returns because there's a little bit more risk involved. And we also don't take leverage. We are the bank. So we can't, like you buy a multifamily or self-storage building, hey, I can go get, 60%, 65% leverage on this. We're buying loans that we are the bank. So there's no leverage, which, typically leverage allows you to enhance your return. So something else to consider, but we're pretty strategic in that buy box. We may have some second position liens. We may do a little bit of some business purpose loans, but for the most part, our bread and butter is having about a 70-30 mix, 70% distressed, 30% performing in our fund, to, again, weigh out some of that risk as well.
Nice. Okay, so I'm gonna rehash what you just said. You like first position loans, residential. They need to be owner occupied, and you're looking for the middle income band in whatever metro you're in. You want the equity in the loans you're looking for prior to 2017, and then you want about 60 cents on the dollar. So 60% loan to value for what the property is currently worth, correct?
Yep.
Nice. I love it. So non-performing loans, they're non-performing for a reason. People stop paying, which means that's the first question that kind of pops into my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the first, if I were looking at this as an investor myself, looking to invest in a fund, that would be the question that I would want to ask the GP is, how do you get these loans to start performing again? So that's my question to you. You're buying a non-performing loan. Why is there still value in it? How do you get those loans to start performing again?
I had $1 for every time this question was asked of me. I wouldn't need to run a fund and I could retire. Uh, so no, that's the most important question. And it's kind of part of what we look at our buy box. It's the same question sometimes, I pose back to people, why would you buy a house that is dilapidated? You can renovate it, enhance its value. Note is similar, very similar, where, we almost, I'll use the term, somewhat flip a note, where when we buy the note, we look at three things. We look at the person, the predicament, and the property. The property can't be, run down. The person can't be somebody who's filed bankruptcy 5 times and they know how to, I'll use the term, quote unquote, game the system. We all had renters. We all have, other people, we all know how people can game the system. No different on this side. Then we look at the predicament. Why did they get in this situation? And a lot of times it's one of 3 things, loss of job, death, divorce. So those are situations where, this is where I love note investing. It's problem solving. How can we want the borrower to keep their home because it's more profitable for us, believe it or not, to keep them in their homes. So this is where like my engineer mindset kicks in of how can I help them and how can we structure something to keep them in their home, keep them paying, and then buying it at a discount, get them paying for a year or a year and a half, then we can turn around and sell that loan. Just like you fix up a house, it goes for a premium. A loan that's been paying or reperforming can sell at a premium. So very similar philosophies.
That makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about finding the notes. We are running down the time, so I gotta.
Yep.
This will be the last question I shoot at you.
Yeah.
You guys are raising $150 million. That is a lot of single families. So you're not doing this. I mean, you got to have some kind of process to go out and
Yeah.
find a good
Mhm.
quality of loan. So how are you
Mhm.
finding them? What's your marketing, lead generation look
Yeah.
like?
So the lead gen on the note side is really conferences and meeting with sellers. A lot of the large sellers go through what's called a whole loan trader. So these are large firms that act on behalf of banks and funds that will liquidate for them. To give you an idea, we right now are putting out about 2 to 3 million a month is what we're buying. This quarter, since April 1st, we've received over $800 million in assets come through our door to bid on. So
Wow.
we have not the 2 quarters before that were only about 400 million. So we could get on a whole nother topic of where the economy's headed, but we don't have time.
Yeah.
But we've seen double the amount of loans come through our desk already in the last 6 weeks. Just from we have about 25 to 30 sources that we've grown over the last 6 years. So people getting started, it's basically I always tell people focus on one or two people first, because if you're getting information from 25 people, you're not going to be able to buy from them anyway. So create individual relationships where they gain trust in you, and then just keep working up the ladder.
Yep. Yep. I love that. All right, man. That runs down our clock. So it's time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Starts with books or any form of education. Give me two recommendations, one for general life wisdom, one for real estate.
For real estate, there's a textbook I took in a master's class called Real Estate Finance by a guy, William Brueggemann. And it goes into really understanding finance. And a lot of people may know real estate, but they struggle with the finance, or finance people know real estate. So it's a very lengthy textbook, but it's an awesome textbook in regards to understanding financing of real estate.
Perfect. Real estate finance, right on. What about the general life wisdom?
General life wisdom. I like the Miracle Morning,
Okay.
which
Hal Elron, right?
which really just focuses about getting think of a machine. Humans are really like machines. We function at different levels, and we all think we function the same every day, but it kind of gives you ideas how to set up your morning. It doesn't mean you have to follow the process, but it gives you ideas of certain things you can do. And again, we're all different as well, but trying a few different things in the morning to really set your day up for success.
Yep. I love that. All right. Next question is for your younger self. So let's go back to the Chris who was just getting his first job at
Mhm.
that construction company. Go back to him,
Mhm.
look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
It's interesting because most people would say, "Oh, you should start early," which is common. But to me, I look at it of start when the time is right. Which when I was a young person, I was very immature, and I needed to work for a professional company. I could not be an entrepreneur at 20, 25 years old. I needed 10 to 15 years of seasoning behind somebody, and we're all different on that. So, looking back, sometimes I would try and follow other people who I wanted to be like. Just remember that we're all individual, and certain things that people do may fit you, but don't try and be somebody you're not.
Man, I love that advice. So start when the time is right. We've been keeping a tally on the podcast because pretty much everybody that comes on the show, when I ask this question, they say they wish they started earlier. And so we've
Mhm.
been keeping a tally, but you kind of turn that wisdom on its head. Start when the time is right. I really like that because you're right. There is no, end all be all one
Mhm.
rule for everybody. Everybody's
Yeah.
different. So you got to start when the timing is right for you. Great
Yeah.
advice.
And one quick thing I just want to add, 2006 to 8, I was in my early 30s. If I would have started then and got crushed in the markets in
Oh,
2008 to 10, I probably would not have gotten back in,
yeah.
because you were so beaten and bloodied from it. I probably would have been so afraid. So
Yep.
I'm glad I started after it,
Yep. Yep.
personally.
Hindsight's 2020, right?
Yep.
All right. Next question is about your business. All our businesses run on the people and the positions we hire for. So, what are the first three positions you hired, and would you do it differently if you did it again today?
So first three positions I hired was a investor relations / strategy.
Nice.
who Lauren, who had been working with me for a period of time. She is awesome. And then somebody, an asset manager, Chi, who runs my asset management, and Delaney, who started in asset management, but now is my operations. So basically, our company, if you looked at it in different buckets, is investor relations to raise money, asset management to manage, get the money out the door. But then the person that connects the two, the operations person to make sure, left knows what the right's doing, the right knows what the left's doing. And I'm one of those people who took a long time to hire people. And I was doing all the day-to-day work. And I'll tell anybody out there, if I go back to my younger self, that would probably be the one thing is trust more people and bring on people earlier would be the thing I'd say instead of trying to do it all yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you just hire a VA, just getting
Yeah.
that first hire in the door is going to open up your time so much. So it's interesting that you started with an investor relations. I guess it makes sense
Mhm.
because you're on the note side. And so the biggest thing is just getting the actual cash in the door so you can buy the notes.
Yep.
Would you do it differently? It sounds like you started with investor relations, then asset manager, then ops. Would you do the same order this time, or would you change it if you started again today?
I'd still do it the same.
All right. First time. You got it right the first time. I love it. All right.
Like
Next
to think I have.
question.
Yeah.
What's that?
I like to think I have.
There we go. Don't we all?
Yeah.
All right. Next question is about the US. It's a big place, a lot of opportunity out there. So give me one metro you're most excited about investing in today.
Ooh, that is a great question. One area from the note side that we are really interested in is Georgia.
Georgia. All right.
Um, yep. So on the note side, we look more about the state
Mm-hmm.
than kind of metro. We've invested in over 40 states, but Georgia, being its laws regarding being a lender are it's restrictive and owning loans, so not a lot of people can own loans there. You have to go through certain licensing, but it's also a very quick state if there's a default. So it
Oh,
really
interesting.
brings people to the table quick, and it's an area where I know Atlanta's starting to get hurt on the commercial side of things, but starting to see a little more, people not want to go to Florida, looking at Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah. Florida has been a huge, hot market, still is, but I've
Mhm.
been hearing a lot of people very, very bullish on Georgia. So love to
Mhm.
hear that. Next question is about mentors. None of us are islands. We all stand on the shoulders of giants. So give me one
Mhm.
mentor who has contributed significantly to your career today.
This is probably cheating, but one has been my father,
Mm,
who had passed away, but another has been, this gentleman John, who when I went to go work for a developer, he was a hard-nosed older gentleman, very difficult to work for. But the first question he asked me is, "What's your personal portfolio like?" And he challenged me. He pushed me, not only at the work side, but he didn't have to because I'm his employee, but he pushed me personally to looking out for me, and I looked at him as a mentor. And guy was a pain in the ass, excuse the phrase, and he was a tough guy to work for. But damn, was he smart and knowledgeable.
yeah. You got to have those people in your life who kind of push you past your limits because that's where you grow.
Yep.
All right, next one is about your strengths. We are all gifted with gifts that we uniquely provide this world. So, what is your Superman strength?
My Superman strength is I'm very efficient. I can get a lot done. My team basically kind of jokes at, do I have 48 hours in a day because of the amount of stuff I get done? So I'd say that is my Superman power. Hopefully, the
That's
next question is what's my weakness?
I should add that. That's not the question that I asked, but that's a good one. Well, let's do it. You're
Yeah.
starting. You're starting it. So, next question: what is your weakness? And is I guess your weakness usually goes with your strength. So, let's hear your weakness.
Yeah, the weakness is it kind of does because a lot of people may have, I'll call it that Superman strength. You think everyone else should have that, and
Mm,
understanding people's other strengths and weaknesses, and not everybody is like you. And
yeah.
when I started bringing on people, I wanted everyone to be like me, and then I
Hmm.
realized, great quote I heard was, if you have two people in the room who give you the same answer, including you or somebody else, or say the same thing, one of them is expendable. So you want diversity within that environment, and you don't want people like you or to be the same, because if you have the strengths, you're going to have blind spots in your business, if you don't cover for what your weaknesses are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I've been trying to be more cognizant of with myself, because I also, we all have strengths that we, as I said, uniquely provide. And my strengths, I always look at them in other people and I'm like, well, I want everybody to be like that. But that's not the case. You want a variety of strengths to fit where your weaknesses are. So love to hear that. That leads us to the last question, and this is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out. What's the best way for people to reach out and get in contact with you?
Yep. Best way is you can email me, Chris at 7einvestments.com. And it's the number 7, the letter E, investments.com. That's also our website, where you can go on our website, check out what we've going on, learn more about our fund offerings, and other things that we do post a lot on LinkedIn and on our Facebook and our website, just all real estate happenings. I like to think of a jack of all trades in real estate. I love what's going on and talking real estate. So it's not only note specific, we post on everything.
Cool. I love that. All right. I will put that link in the show notes. So if y'all want to reach out to Chris, just click a little more in the description. It'll pull down the full description, and in there you can find Chris's URLs. All right, man, that wraps it up. Thank you again for hopping on the show.
Thank you, Gabe, for having me. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Absolutely. For everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. And if you guys want to support the show, all we ask is you give us a like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.